And as the system makes more inland progress, we'll start to have the rain totals adding up within that region. So we're seeing a very high amount of rain. Rainfall estimates have been upwards of 4 to 6 inches so far in the southern extensions of Taylor and Lafayette County. So these are our current flash flood warnings. Also, we have them up in Madison County in anticipation of high rain rates and high rain accumulations, which can also have an effect into Brooks and Lowndes County. So those warnings are in effect until later this afternoon at 2:15 is when the Madison, Brooks, and even northeastern Jefferson County, that's when those flash flood warnings expire, and then an expiration time of 10:45 here in Taylor, Lafayette, and Dixie counties. So this is not going to be something that just goes away. In fact, here's the latest 12-hour estimates, and as mentioned, about 4 to 6 inches, even approaching 7 inches now being indicated in portions of Lafayette County. So that would certainly cause too much rain to gather in a confined area, more to fall. Watch for some standing water, and hopefully you don't have to watch for it because you're already within your safe space and your shelter across this region. I did see a wind report of a tree down on 51 just outside of the Tennell area. So that's another hazard to keep in mind, not just in Lafayette, but other areas where maybe it just happens and it hasn't gone through the proper channels to get to the National Weather Service to be distributed broadly. So if you definitely don't have to go outside in these conditions, please don't. Just stay where you are. And even use caution in these slightly lighter areas where the rainfall rates have not been as intense and the accumulations are just beginning. But you can also have those similar wind hazards even within areas where you've only had maybe just marginal tropical depression winds, or maybe upwards of 40-mile-per-hour winds that can still cause issues for even areas outside of that eye wall zone, which will still have an effect for locations a little more heavily populated across the Tallahassee metro. Heavy rain continuing here in Suwannee County, where officially you do not have a flash flood warning, but you're right on the verge of the one that exists to the west and south of the Suwannee River. And you'll still have those increasing rain and wind patterns here in the Live Oak area going into the next few minutes as the system continues to move mostly towards the north or maybe slightly east of due north. But again, as mentioned at the top of the hour, landfall has occurred, and we will continue to have the inland effects of what will be a diminishing wind maker in terms of Hurricane Debby, but the rain maker is still going to be something that we'll be dealing with for several hours to come, and perhaps even several days from now as it makes further progress into South Georgia. So even though you're far inland from the coast in the Azalea City, those wind and rain effects will be coming for you later this morning, and you will certainly experience some adverse conditions because of that.
All right, thank you, Cass. And as we continue to watch this eye wall move to the north, areas like Mayo getting in on the action right now. One place I'm really concerned about is Live Oak, where I'm seeing multiple reports of debris on the roadway from Florida Highway Patrol. Let's check back in with our neighborhood reporter, Alberto Camargo. He's in Live Oak. He's been seeing damage to buildings. Alberto, what do you have for us now?
All right, we've been driving around Live Oak looking for different damages from Hurricane Debby, and as you can see, we have something right here in the road in front of us. We're in the Lowe's parking lot, the Lowe's on US 129, and you can see this metal canopy that's been blown entirely over on its head right here at the very front road here in front of Lowe's. We came to check and see if any of the outdoor equipment may have been affected by the storm. A lot of the sheds are in good shape, but this metal roofing right here has been blown over. It's slowly moving towards us with every wind gust, so we're just kind of keeping an eye on it. But it just goes to show the damage that Hurricane Debby has been doing here in Live Oak. We've shown you some tin roofing almost coming off. I've told you about debris flying across the road, and here we're seeing something as large as this metal canopy on the road, on its head, flipped over by the wind gusts. Just a little piece of evidence of how damaging the wind gusts have been so far here in Live Oak in Suwannee County.
All right, thank you for that report, Alberta. We'll check back in with you in just a bit as this storm continues moving north. I did see a report from the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office that mentions that there are trees down on several roads throughout the county. There are a few places where the traffic lights are out, so be careful if you have to go anywhere. And areas that are moving into the storm, moving into places like Valdosta, Madison, Jasper. These winds, they're very intense, as we're seeing on those live pictures. We're tracking the power outages. I just got an update from the city of Tallahassee where there are 84 outages affecting about 2,400 customers. TCEC, Tri-County Electric Co-op, they're reporting about 10,500 customers without power in the region. It's really no surprise when you see this eye wall moving through that region. First to know Chief Meteorologist Cass Nurse has where the storm is going next. Cass?
Still likely to continue that northern movement as far as the eye goes, but the moisture is deep and it's broad and it will continue to circulate around that center. So we are seeing rain rates increasing on the west side. It's not corresponding to the same level of intensity as what we have in the Suwannee Valley, but there's definitely going to be a prolonged time where the rain, even on the lighter side, is going to be steadier, and it can come with some modest wind gusts for the Tallahassee Metro. Checking in on some of the rain and gusts that have been combined here in the Suwannee River area, especially Lafayette County. Recent wind gusts in Mayo, right in the heart of the town, right about 65 miles per hour based on the observation point there. So we're still having clear evidence of those bands connected to the circulation surrounding the eye that's producing higher level gusts of wind across this region here. And again, I keep giving you that advance notice that we're going to see those same types of wind characteristics moving into Madison County. If you haven't really heard it yet, it is on the way. And we're letting folks know that in Madison County, you may not have, a long duration of very strong hurricane winds, but you don't have to have the 74-mile-per-hour winds to have an effect there. So just be prepared within Madison County for those higher level gusts that can be upwards of the 60 to 70 range. That's also a possibility here in the Live Oak area, as well as the Highway 90 connector there between Lee and the Falmouth neighborhoods. Those will be locations that are going to be more susceptible, more prone to the rate of strong downpours as well as the gustier winds. So next 15, 30 minutes for you within that 90 to 10 corridor up towards Highway 6 as well, along and where the Suwannee and Withlacoochee rivers meet. That will also propagate a little farther towards the north. So folks in Lake Park, Georgia, Clyattville, Valdosta, Madison Highway area, those are going to be some zones where you will also have strong winds coming at you during the 8 o'clock hour, most likely, giving you a little bit of a framework and not using the model data all that much. Like I mentioned last night, when you have the real-time observation from the radar, you can kind of toss the model data out. It does have some use in this case to just give you some figures and numbers, but it takes a little while for that computer data to get in sync with what's happening right now to give a better projection of what's happening down the road. So it's almost more useful to me just to go off of what we're seeing and just kind of give an estimate as far as what will be happening down the road and to the north across our I-75 corridor into the late morning hours. The more west you go, hey, Bainbridge, yeah, you can get a little bit of rain coming at you. Cairo, you're encountering that as well. We've been mentioning that little burst, if you will, coming through eastern and southern Leon County into Wakulla County. So yeah, you can have a little bit of wind effects from that, as well as a spread of rain as the moisture wraps around. And also keep in mind, now that the system is over land, as it moves further, it will lose its structure and then kind of expand out even more. So even though the rain may not be overly intense for some cases, there's a good chance that we can see at least a period of time of showers. And that's why we account for that possibility of about 1 to 2, maybe 3 inches of rain in the tri-state area. And we'll still hold on to about 1 to 3, maybe even 4 inches of rain for the Tallahassee Metro. Although 4 inches could be more of an isolated case in the eastern side of the county, it's still a possibility to have just a little extra saturation just thanks to the overall effects of the moisture coming around into the metro area of the capital, as well as our southwestern Georgia areas near and east of the Flint River. But at a lesser amount, lesser intensity, a little gusty, a little squally still. After all, there is a hurricane that is nearby, and you will certainly have some of the effects just because of that fact. But if you're closer to the eye, which is continuing to keep it kind of calm over the Steinhatchee vicinity, even in Keaton Beach, you're getting in on at least the edge of the calmer section of the circulation. So a little decrease in the overall force of the wind and rain, a temporary break for you there, as that will likely begin to fill back in on the backside, which is a little weaker, but still, as it is over the water of Appalachia Bay, you still have the unabated flow of wind, which keeps those speeds higher. So you're still going to have a little backlash of winds that will be mostly offshore or parallel to the coast, but they will pick up once again, and they can be at a fairly significant rate of speed. You can also have maybe a little more of that storm surge that tries to emerge once again from Horseshoe Beach over to Steinhatchee, just depending on the angle where the eye comes in. And that backside rotation can maybe cause those stronger winds to bump right back up and maybe cause a minor return of some water levels that exceed areas which are typically dry. So keep those factors in mind. Certainly it's way too premature to try to go out and see what's going on in a general sense, but there's certainly a reason to continue to monitor things on site where you are and not try to venture out. But definitely stay in your sheltered place across the Suwannee River. It looks like a new flash flood warning has just been issued in the last few seconds, which includes Suwannee County. Now that's in effect until noon because of the anticipation, the already occurring high water rates or high rainfall rates, and that will likely continue for quite some time. So now we have that effect going on into Suwannee County, including Live Oak and all the neighborhoods surrounding there and to the south. It also includes portions of Columbia County. Does not look like it includes Hamilton County quite yet, but with the overall trends that we've seen so far this morning, one set of heavy rain as it moves into a section that has not had as much heavy rain, that will continue to influence the need for future flash flood warnings because of just what has been going on with high rainfall accumulations over the last few hours closer to where the eye has been moving.
All right, thanks, Cass. A few things I want to update our viewers on. Take a look at this live picture of the I-10 rest stop in Suwannee County. The trees are bending in the wind here. That heavy rain still coming down. Cass, you mentioned that potential for surge coming into Steinhatchee. The latest river gauge update shows that it's at 1 foot, which means it's come up about 6 feet since low tide. We'll see if it goes any higher. We do want to check in with Perry right now. Our Capitol reporter Forrest Saunders is standing by with a look at the conditions there.
Hey guys, so obviously conditions have really deteriorated here in Perry. This has been an ongoing thing throughout the morning. We've seen the winds start to really pick up. The rain is starting to get really, really strong. And one of the things that I've really noticed here is that it feels like sleet because it's hitting you with such force. It almost feels like you're being pelted with ice, just like needles on your face. I'm having a hard time even seeing or keeping my eyes open because we were getting so much rain and so much wind. My fingers are actually pruned like I've been swimming out in a pool. And obviously the rain is the big concern here. We did just lose power in Perry maybe about 10, 15 minutes ago. We were wondering whether or not that was actually going to happen. But what I'll tell you was it was a stunning sort of light show because over in the distance you could actually see what might have been a transformer going down as it sort of lit up the sky. You could see all of these bright blues and purples in the clouds and in the rain, in the mist. Fortunately, we are now having the sun come up. That will help people as they start to recover. But yeah, my hotel has lost power now. You have a lot of people that came up from the shoreline, Keaton Beach, Cedar Key, Steinhatchee, They're all staying here, trying to get away from the nasty storm surge that's happening down there. But now, obviously, they are here without power, and that's probably how it's going to be for at least a little while. But the state was very prepared for this. They recognized that power outages were going to be likely, so they've done a few things. They staged utility crews up and down the peninsula, somewhere between 12 to 17,000 utility workers, linemen ready to go for when the power goes down and the storm clears. They can get out and repair things as fast as possible. They're also trying something new this year. We told you a lot about it just yesterday, which is they have these things called tiger dams. They're basically these long orange tubes. They've got about 10 miles of this stuff, and they've deployed about 9,400 feet around power substations, around wastewater treatment plants. They can stack these water-filled tubes up about 8 feet and prevent water from getting into those vital, critical infrastructure spaces. And that's going to hopefully help on the back end of this storm. You're going to have quicker recovery and potentially less damage in some of those vital areas. But right now, obviously, the conditions in Perry, not great. What I've been hearing from meteorologists is that we are seeing some of the strongest bands right now of Debby hitting us. And I'm telling you, I can feel it. I'm about 165 pounds, 170, depending how close we are to the holidays. And the wind is so strong that I've had a hard time standing up in it. I've sort of adopted that Captain Morgan stance from time to time. It has been a wild ride, and it sounds like it's going to continue at least until Debby gets out of the way. But again, the big issue with this storm is that it's a slow mover, and so it's just going to keep dumping all of this rain on top of areas like Perry. You can see behind me, water is already starting to pool in sort of that green space there. So that's one thing we're going to have to watch for, is a lot of flash flooding in some of these areas, and then just ongoing flooding in some of the river basins and other parts of North Florida as Debby continues to move on. That's the latest out here. I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Forrest. As we watch this storm, I got to tell you, I'm monitoring 4 screens right now. I want to start with the biggest one behind me, Ocklawahnee Bay. Take a look at this. I guess you would call them brown caps because of that brackish water. They are rolling onto shore here. The dock appears to be at a normal level, so Ocklawahnee Bay not really experiencing too much surge as far as we can tell. A major road issue right now that I just saw on Florida 511, debris on the roadway on US 90 eastbound at Hillside Road. All lanes are closed. This is just east of Monticello, so well away from the center of the storm, but debris still coming down, blocking roads. We've got another road blockage, Highway 122 at Skipper Bridge Road. This is in Lowndes County. Some pictures we received show a large tree down, but there are firefighters from Lowndes County working to cut it down. There is some good news, though. People are finding shelter in this storm. I want to read you this tweet from Leon County Schools. They say that as the storm made landfall, 98 people are sheltering safely in 6 of their school campuses. We told you about those shelters opening up, so it's good to see people taking advantage of those opportunities to stay safe. And we are not out of the woods yet, Cass.
That's right, Channing. The landfall has happened, but as we've seen before, as we're going to see this time, things just don't collapse and go away. You still have lingering effects from gradual decreasing wind, but it's still windy in areas closer to the eye in particular, but even extending outside of that zone. But we also have the rain, and I think that's going to be something that is really going to be persistent in many areas in terms of the flooding aspect of this. We've seen those high water levels and accumulations already, 4 to 6 inches and more to come as this moves at about 10 miles per hour to the northeast. So 10 miles per hour takes 6 hours to go 60 miles in that case. So this is going to be something that really sticks around, and the rain really adds up. So we were talking about this days in advance, that this will be more of a primary flooding concern in many cases where we have the landfall and the surrounding areas, and it definitely seems to be coming to that point where it is translating into a flood risk that is going to be continuing to increase, especially in the eastern side of the Big Bend area. The heaviest of the winds continuing to show gusts upwards of about 40 to 60 miles per hour, depending on the various observation points I've looked at. The weather stem gauge at Madison High School had one of those in the 62 mile per hour range coming in from the northeast with sustained winds that are lower, but nonetheless, it does lend some evidence and credence to the belief that as this northern edge of the eye wall pushes closer to these communities here in Madison County, we will have enhanced wind gusts. They're already pretty strong at an elevated level of about 3,000 feet, where we have a very strong overall flow, mostly coming in from the east and moving to the west. And again, these are not ground level wind estimates, but they are in a higher level of the atmosphere. And that's where we're seeing at least some evidence of stronger gusts, at least about 2,000 feet up in the range of hurricane force. So again, not advised to go outside and look, but maybe if you have a window view and it's safe, you might see those low clouds just moving right along very swiftly, and that's the evidence of that very strong low-level flow that circulates around this system. And that's evidence that the winds are very strong at that level, and it doesn't take much to get those gusts to come back to ground level, especially when coupled with the rain. So those wind gusts are going to be pretty hazardous as you move forward in time across sections of Madison County. So starting off along the Highway 53 region near Lee, and then south of there towards some of those campgrounds off of 53. Those are going to be some particularly concerning spots when it comes to the rate of wind gusts on those RVs and campers. That's not going to be a very good combination to deal with.
Yeah, Casson, we've been talking about the danger of this storm ramping up for days now. We said that it was going to become a Category 1 hurricane, and that's exactly what it made landfall as just a short time ago. The unfortunate thing is, though, as this storm moves farther inland, it's having a bigger impact on our inland counties. So I'm talking about Lafayette County and Madison County, Hamilton, and places like Live Oak, where we're seeing the damage already being reported. Our neighborhood reporter, Alberto Camargo, is riding around showing us the damage to roofs and canopies that are blowing off. I'm checking the Florida Highway Patrol incident map here. The yellow triangles have gone from like 2 or 3 before dawn to probably more than a dozen now. So there are a lot of incidents coming up here. I believe this is the live camera from Alberto showing us in Swanee County the conditions there. The rain still coming down. Those clouds overhead. Are we able to take this full and have Alberto tell us where he is and what it looks like downtown Live Oak? Alberto, where are you, if you can hear me?
The only one who likes taking them, because he's just like, I know I won't get towed. That's true. We are live in Live Oak, coming up here on downtown, the junction between US 90, US 129. We've been driving through town early this morning just to see what the damage has been looking like. We've seen, down branches, debris in the roads, debris flying across the roads in front of us as we've been driving down the road. We're looking we got a wind gust picking up now. Perhaps you can see some of the wind affecting the trees here in the distance. We're gonna head south on 129 toward Brantford. We maybe meet the eye wall of Hurricane Debby as it's now made landfall in the Big Bend. We're here in the First to Know Storm Chaser. I'm Alberto Camargo.
All right, Alberto, please be safe out there. This is a live look over North Madison now. You probably can't see it because of the, well, you can see it there. The flag is just whipping in the wind here. The trees are being bustled around as that heavy rain moves in. It reminds me of scenes from Idalia almost a year ago. In Perry, that's one community that was just recovering from that storm. Maya Sargent's been tracking the recovery there for the last year. She joins us live from Perry with an update there.
I'm Mayor Sargent in Taylor County. We had to move inside because of the rain and the storm and all the wind that we were getting. We didn't want that to get on the camera, so we are here inside. Just moved in for a little bit of protection. I have an update on power outages here in Taylor County. I got a text from a neighbor saying that her power went out at 4 p.m. yesterday, then came back on at midnight and then went out at 6:30 this morning. I got a message from the CEO of Doctors Memorial Hospital here in Taylor County who tells me they're currently on backup generators. On top of that, the hotel that we're staying at the O'Connor Lodge on US 19. That's just lost partial power. So really we're seeing the impacts of these storms, and we're seeing the impacts of the wind and the rain causing these power outages. I'm sure they're going to get more widespread as we understand and come to learn the consequences of this storm. But currently live in Perry, Mayor Sargent.
All right, thank you for that update, Maya. That community has been through so much in the last year with roofs ripped off, buildings damaged. People are still rebuilding because of Hurricane Idalia. Now they'll likely have to rebuild because of this historic storm. First, the Chief Meteorologist Cassidy Veneris has a look at where exactly landfall happened, how strong it was, and where this storm is going next.
That's right. Landfall point was at Steinhatchee, and that's where we see the overall calmness of the eye. And that was declared about half an hour ago when we were monitoring just how broad that eye was stretching across the northern Nature Coast and the far eastern side of the Big Bend region. So that's where we had the center of the system moving inland. So now we're going to start a gradual weakening phase when it comes to the winds, but it's not like you flip off a light switch. It's going to take some time to see that overall wind power begin to fall down to more manageable levels. So while we're still here, just 30 minutes after landfall, there's still going to be some longer duration of those gustier winds. It's doubtful we're going to have 80-mile-per-hour winds because once the storm moves inland, unless you're right near the point of landfall in the immediate time frame as that happens, you're not really going to get the sustained peak maximum winds. That's why when we talk about highest sustained winds of X miles per hour, in this case 80, that's the highest that's going to be expected in terms of sustained winds. So now that we have it over land, those 80-mile-per-hour winds are going to be less expected, but having 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts. We've seen that frequently. In fact, that one report from Madison High School that I spoke of a few minutes ago, it's been verified by the National Weather Service. So it's legitimate. And those winds will carry inland. You don't have to have 85 or 80 mile per hour winds to cause issues, as we've seen already this morning in many areas, in Live Oak and Perry, and even outside of this region. Even in where we've seen lighter winds in comparison, we've already had some of those effects of down trees, like what Channing mentioned a while back in Lowndes County. So there's going to be those issues that are going to stretch for several hours. Landfall does not mean the end of the storm. It's just the passage of one phase entering another phase. And that phase will involve, in this case, a lot of rain and some of those local effects from gustier winds, which will still be experienced along Highway Interstate 10, 90, up Madison Highway 145, and surrounding areas as well. So those are going to be the prime spots for those effects to be felt, while the power outages will still be an issue in areas even outside of that strongest zone. In fact, some new numbers just coming in. The number of customers out in Taylor County, as Maya had been mentioning, power was lost there. Now about 10,000, closing in on 20,000 in Suwannee County, and numbers gradually increasing throughout Wakulla and Leon County, as well as Jefferson. Lesser totals across South Georgia at this point, but we can expect these to increase for Brooks and Lowndes County, as well as surrounding areas east of Interstate 75. Governor DeSantis, I understand, is speaking at this time.
Joining me today to discuss some of this will be Kevin Guthrie, who's the Executive Director of the Florida Division of Emergency Management, and you'll hear from him shortly. We are still at a level 1 activation. We continue to utilize all available resources of the state emergency response team to respond to this storm. This is a Category 1 hurricane. It has followed a track very, very similar to Hurricane Idalia. The storm area. To contrast that with Idalia, Idalia reached close to 120 mile per hour in sustained winds. We have seen significant storm surge. We have seen inundation. We have seen and will continue to see flooding in various parts of the state of Florida. This storm is expected to move throughout north central Florida and likely go into Georgia and in the Carolinas. Yesterday and into this morning, we saw impacts throughout the west coast of Florida, starting in southwest Florida and continuing up the coast. This storm has produced and will likely produce significant flooding events from Sarasota, Bradenton area all the way up to northern Florida. And that's not something that just happens when the storm passes. There's a ongoing threat of that over the ensuing days. Now that Hurricane Debby is making landfall, the most important thing to do is to just protect yourself and protect your family. Don't go out into this storm. Don't drive on the roads, particularly when they're flooded. We have had some traffic mishaps over the last 12 hours. And when you have flood situations, that is the number one way where we will see fatalities is by people being out on the roads and hydroplaning or having other problems. So do not go walk or drive into flooded roadways. There are hazards there. They're dangerous. We want everybody to be safe. Power. So far, we have about 143,000 Floridians without power. We have a lot of restoration personnel ready to go to get it back on. I think because this is a Category 1 with 80-mile-an-hour sustained winds, the total number of power outages are not going to reach the level that they did with Hurricane Idalia, and certainly not the level that they did with Hurricane Ian back in 2022. But we do have 17,000 linemen that are ready to assist with restoring power immediately. And I know a lot of the utilities have already restored hundreds of thousands of folks starting yesterday. We also have Starlink internet ready to deploy if that is needed. So we're standing by. We want to assist all the local communities with anything that they need. As I mentioned yesterday, we have been approved for federal disaster assistance. Our pre-landfall declaration was approved. Our National State Guard are ready for search, rescue, and humanitarian assistance as needed. State emergency response teams also fully engaged in preparedness and now our response efforts. We have our Florida Highway Patrol that are ready to enter their Alpha Bravo shifts. That's 24-hour, round-the-clock, nonstop shifts. We have 3,000 service members from the Florida National Guard that are on standby, and that includes search and rescue, route clearance, distribution, and protection of critical infrastructure. They have 10 rotary aircraft and over 400 tactical vehicles staged to support relief operations. And we have our Florida State Guard, where we have 100 soldiers, 9 shallow water vessels, 10 UTVs, 2 amphibious rescue vehicles, and 7 search and rescue crews ready to be deployed from Camp Blanding as needed. Florida Fish and Wildlife, as the flooding happens, they have 12 swift water rescue teams ready to go, and they are going to be very dynamic in this and move to where the problems are. We've also have on hand for this storm statewide 11 million bottles of water, almost 3 million shelf-stable meals. We do not anticipate needing to put a major dent in that at this time, but we will be ready if those circumstances change. Our Florida Department of Transportation has been clearing roads and shoulders for the last few days. Cut and toss efforts to clear roadways and highways will start as soon as the storm passes. The Sunshine Skyway Bridge and the Howard Franklin Bridge have been temporarily closed due to high winds and will be reopened as quickly as possible once conditions improve. And there are a number of roads that have been flooded and that have been temporarily closed. And so as soon as it's safe, they obviously want to get everything back open. We also have FDOT crews staged to inspect coastal bridges, and we'll be monitoring water levels at low-lying bridges near major river crossings, particularly in the northern part of Florida. As I mentioned yesterday, people with disability or special needs. If you need assistance, you can sign up at snr.flhealthresponse.com. That's Florida Department of Health, snr.flhealthresponse.com. Although we haven't had major power outages compared to some of the past storms, If you are without power and you want to use a generator, please do not use that generator inside your home. Make sure you're operating it 20 feet away from the home. We don't want to see anybody get killed based on the carbon monoxide that will build up when those are run inside people's homes. I want to thank everybody who's been involved in the preparation efforts. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. There's going to be a lot of water that's going to be dumped throughout the state, and we're going to see effects of that, not just today, but in the ensuing days. But we are prepared. We have the resources that we need, and those will be deployed as needed to help with the recovery and the response efforts. And I'll turn it over now for further details to Kevin Guthrie.
Thank you, Governor. Appreciate you being here early this morning and late last night and helping provide the necessary leadership that is needed for such an event like this.
All right, you've been listening to Governor Ron DeSantis and other emergency leaders in the state of Florida give an update on their response to Hurricane Debby, which made landfall at 7 o'clock this morning in Steinhatchee. The governor talked about FDOT and how they have been working to clear drainage on the roads so that those heavy rains can drain off of our highways. The governor also mentioned that Florida National Guard is mobilizing up to 3,000 guardsmen. The governor also has said that about 17,000 linemen are on standby in the state, ready to move in and help restore power. And speaking of power outages, I did just get a text from the city of Tallahassee. They say that right now about 3,000 customers are without power in the capital city. They do anticipate additional outages throughout the day as Debby moves to the north, and I'm sure that that story can be the same for communities in North Florida and parts of South Georgia where we're already seeing outages reported. Let's check in with First to Know Chief Meteorologist Casanova Nurse to see where the storm is right now.
We're seeing evidence of those winds coming into South Georgia. The trees in Hayhira are modestly swaying in the winds that are beginning to increase. Even in the northern side of Lowndes County, they're not necessarily at major force, but I do anticipate that we'll see more motion here as the lingering effects of the eye wall will move in this general direction of Lowndes County. So this is where we have it right now, that northern edge has been pushing through Perry, and we've seen the pictures and the video from our neighborhood reporters there of some of the stronger wind gusts that have been occurring within that region of northern Taylor County. This will continue to rotate around, and again, as the system moves on land, we can see a little bit of an expansion, not necessarily at the same intensity, but we can certainly have some gustier winds that start to approach the Osceola River, especially around the Lamont area to the south from this band that will be still rotating around but kind of expanding its overall reach in terms of the area of the eye wall. So that's something we'll monitor here for Jefferson County in particular, especially near Lamont, Caps, and south of there towards, we'll say, Wassissa, Osceola, and various neighborhoods like that. But that will continue to circulate around. The other one on this eastern flank will continue to lift in, right now lining right along the Suwannee River, coming towards Hatch Bend and Branford, and then up Highway 19 and 51 in Suwannee County. So within these eye wall regions, we've had those gusts more frequently around 60 miles per hour, and that's certainly been clocked at some of the reporting sites within Madison County itself, and that can continue to be the case heading into the near-term future in this region, as well as the onset of ongoing downpours, which can certainly worsen any kind of saturation that's already been occurring because of high rain totals within this region. Now, the heavier rain and the gustier winds will also make an effect towards the Dowling Park area right on the river between Lafayette and Suwannee County. So that is anticipated to occur, and I'm looking at one of the weather stem cameras off screen and seeing the effects of those gustier winds at an elevated level in the Dowling Park area. So that's certainly a hazard that will continue for a while and will spread towards the north into the Highway I-10 and Highway 90 corridor, Lee, over towards Falmouth, and over towards Live Oak as well. those will be areas that will have some effects from that storm. This is one of the views from Live Oak, just mentioning that from our roving reporter Alberto Camargo. He is on one of the highways there where some branches have fallen. And again, you don't have to have maximum winds to have obstructions on roadways.
You're looking live at, it's a picture of a tree branch here blocking a road just off of US 129. We're still in Suwannee County. We're outside of Live Oak, heading down towards Brantford, where the eye wall of Debby looks like it's approaching any time now. And you can see how the damage from the winds of Hurricane Debby have blocked this road off entirely. And we're just heading down to Brantford to see how the damage continues down there. I'm Alberto Camargo live.
So clear evidence of those wind gusts that are beginning to affect areas on the southern end of Suwannee County. And again, for those who are out there, either because you just have to, hopefully you don't have a reason to be out in any of this, and the road looked pretty clear. So that's a good thing. But just be aware, once things start to settle down, there can be some areas that still sustain some lingering damage. And that's also been the case in Dixie County, where we are going to send things to our reporter there with an update.
To the minute.
He is immediate. Yeah, I'm not. Just.
This is why I'm a
Stand by. We're on? All right. Sorry about that. Trying to get this thing set up. Michael Paluska here in Cross City in Dixie County, talking to some of the other journalists here just about everything that's going on. And, you know, the thing that we just got, breaking information, I just got off the phone with the mayor of Horseshoe Beach, Jeff Williams. A lot of people evacuated from that town, and we're watching these Facebook Live videos come in, and the mayor just told me he thinks they got 6 to 7 feet of storm surge. No power right now. He said the entire town is cut off, and they're surrounded. At one point, when the eye wall was coming ashore, he said Steinhatchee and Horseshoe Beach were both in the middle of the eye wall. So one part of the town was, and then the other part of the town was. We're about 20 minutes from Horseshoe Beach, but what the mayor's relaying to me and what I can describe watching in the video that we just confirmed and got permission to use, we're trying to turn it around. It's that they had the surge come up, and he thinks it's about 6 to 7 feet, and he said the winds never stop when the eye came ashore. We've been getting these types of gusts now for maybe the past 2 hours. We've been in the eye wall. Started to come around, and we're starting to get the backside, but you can see all of this debris behind me. We have a large canopy above us, a big roof that's been protecting us from a lot of the limbs and palm fronds and dangerous debris that's been flying all over this place. We had a flagpole behind us that we were using to gauge the wind. It actually got knocked over, and so you know, there is a lot of damage and destruction, but what we're being able to confirm now, Horseshoe Beach is cut off. About pretty much the whole town doesn't have power. And there's also a resident there. I think the folks said she's in her 60s. Their house is actually collapsing, and around them, the ceiling, I'm told, in one of their rooms ripped off. So they have rain pouring in, and then the front porch ripped off. And neighbors are telling them to run to get to another house that's open. A lot of people left their front doors open that have sturdier homes so they could get in. This whole thing is unfolding less than a year after Hurricane Idalia came through here as a Cat 3 hurricane. That made landfall on August 30th, and it pretty much followed the exact same path. So they haven't even recovered from Hurricane Idalia from last year, and now they're getting another storm a couple of weeks before the anniversary of that storm. So really terrifying stuff right now. They're definitely going to need help in that area as soon as first responders are able to go in there. They can't go anywhere right now. They're in a hold pattern. You know, as we've covered these storms, 911 calls, they're going off, and all of these 911 call takers are, you know, trying to calm people down. But Horseshoe Beach apparently did get 6 to 7 foot of storm surge, and the mayor said that he thinks some of it's still going up. Mayor Jeff Williams, who we just got off the phone with. So a dangerous situation unfolding right now as we speak, 20 minutes from us along the coast. And then as this storm moves inland, there are a ton of saturated trees, pine trees. This is a very wooded area. The Big Bend part of Florida is called the Nature Coast. Not a lot of like real civilization here. Bunch of homes up on stilts, small mom and pop places, grocery stores. Think of old Florida charm, salt of the earth type people that love being on the water, fishing, and just enjoying this type of lifestyle. So it's going to be a long road to recovery. And as I mentioned, they haven't even recovered from a dahlia. So we're going to try to get some more of that video, turn it around, and send it out. But for now, we're live here in Dixie County. Michael Paluska, Scripps News.
All right, thank you, Michael. Stay safe. We're going to get you a live look now at Dowling Park. Take a look at this. The trees being pushed around in that wind actually whipped pretty violently here. Here's the Swanee River. We do expect it to come up due to all this heavy rainfall that's moving through. You heard Michael talk about Steinhatchee and what they've been through over the last year. We want to check in with Kate Hussey, who filed this report. Okay, it looks like we're still working to get Kate. Sorry about that, technical difficulties, but it is severe weather and it is unpredictable and you never know what's going to happen. But look at this tree just being bustled around in the winds. It's really incredible to see. Fortunately, those winds are relatively compact to the storm, but they are moving north. As first to know, Chief Meteorologist Casanova Nurse has been telling us all morning. Areas like Valdosta come to mind, which have had multiple rounds of severe weather over the last year that we've told you about. We're going to be checking in on that community throughout the day. And let's go check in with Cass right now and see if he can tell us where the storm is now and when Valdosta can expect the worst of those winds to move in.
We'll certainly cover that all because what's happening in Dowling Park right now, zooming in on the general region, this is northern Lafayette County, western Swanee, Hamilton County here, and Madison here. Where we see the Chansey neighborhood is pretty much where Dowling Park is, just a little bit to the east of there. So that's County Road 250, and Dowling Park is right there. That camera is hoisted at the Christian Advent Center, which is right on the river here. So at an elevated level, you do have those stronger winds, and I just checked, they were in the range of about 54 miles per hour from that perspective of the camera. So we do certainly have those stronger winds, and this is right on the edge of the eye wall, which is still draped over the Day community, as well as on Highway 51 towards Louisville. So we do have the effects of those winds connected to what's left of the eye wall, and that's helping to enhance the wind speeds. It's good to see that there's still some power and internet connectivity there with that camera, despite all the winds that are going on within this region. And this will continue to have an effect in Live Oak, as well as Lee, over towards Madison, near the Eridu neighborhood, over towards Nuttall Rise as well in the western side of Taylor County. These are all communities and neighborhoods. They may not be big, they may not be heavily populated, but people live there, and this will have a big effect on them, either in a short-term sense or even a long-term sense, especially, again, considering the effects that we had from the hurricane last year. This is not something that's necessarily desired, and any size community that gets in on this action is going to be heavily affected by that. So we definitely keep those aspects and those factors in mind for the folks who are being impacted by this once again. But there's still that sharp contrast between what's happening to the east and what's been happening to the west. The one area of caution I would say would be along the Osceola River, where this section of the eye wall will kind of break around, and that will maybe have a gusty wind effect for communities that are close to a wildlife refuge, but also another lightly populated area. But still, nonetheless, some communities such as Wassissa and Osceola, those will be some communities that can maybe have the weakening effects of this eye wall still come around and come close to the river itself. Lamont, you're included in that, so just be aware of the possibilities of some enhanced wind gusts that will start to come towards you over the next half hour or so coming out of Taylor County. This is pretty much close to where the rest area is on 1927. That's where we have some of those stronger winds right now. We begin to subside a bit in Perry as far as the strength of the winds go, but it's still going to be something that causes major hassles for another several minutes to come. And then this will expand more into Swanee counties. We've been warning over the last half hour, this will continue to lift in. I do think I have a motion version of the radar coming up, and that can kind of give you at least some perspective as far as how much rain has fallen over the last 12 hours. This will continue to add up, so we're getting in on the 6 to 7 inch rain total in Lafayette County, thanks in part to the positioning of the current heavy rain right now. That activity will also continue to add up by quite a bit as we extend into the next hour or so. And this, moving at 10 miles per hour, I'd say what's left of this will work towards the state line area. We're approaching 8 o'clock right now, so I'd say give it about another hour or two. So by 10 o'clock, we'll have what's left of this eye wall moving into the Valdosta vicinity. That's going to be a point where we can certainly have some deteriorating weather conditions, more so than what we've had already. It may not necessarily look exactly like we're seeing in Dowling Park, but you'll definitely have some wind-blown rain around, and that can certainly have an effect for power availability and just the quality of overall travel. It's not really advised when you have a hurricane that's still moving in your general direction, albeit in a weakening phase gradually, but there's still not going to be a whole lot of opportunity to find quality weather conditions within this region because too many hazards are unfolding. Just the heavy rain, the debris that can be blown by some of those strong winds. We're not talking like a EF3 tornado. It's not that kind of wind gust, but you can certainly still have, like we saw from Alberto, trees and branches down on roadways. You may not anticipate it. Power lines can be snapped and they could be live. So there's just not many good reasons to be out, especially not to just sightsee and storm chase. If you don't have to do those things. You don't have to go out there and get a viral picture if it puts your safety at risk. So just hang tight and let this stuff go by as long as you're in a safe spot. Just keep those things in mind, especially for our friends and neighbors in interior counties like Valdosta and Lowndes County, as well as Brooks County, and be aware that the heavy rain will continue to increase through the rest of the morning, so those flooding risks will become a little more enhanced as well as we go towards the midday hour.
Yeah, Cass, and speaking of Lowndes County, I want to talk about the Hayhira neighborhood because you can see the trees starting to bend in the wind here as those stronger winds continue to move north. Continuing our tour of this storm and how it's affecting neighborhoods across our area, we want to head to Steinhatchee, where Kate Hussey filed this report.
I'm Kate Hussey reporting in Steinhatchee, where Hurricane Debby is currently making landfall all around us. We're in the eye of the storm, so you can see we're not really experiencing any rainfall, just a little bit of wind, but this storm already has caused some damage ripping through this area. You can see over my shoulder what appears to be a roof ripped off a building right along the Steinhatchee River here. If you look closely, you can see part of that metal roofing actually peeled back on the side of the river. That river is the biggest concern for residents and business owners out here. It's what flooded and inundated businesses and homes right along the waterfront during Hurricane Idalia when we were here just less than a year ago. So while we are in the eye of the storm isn't over yet, and we'll continue to monitor potential flooding concerns. I'm Kate Hussey for Scripps News.
All right, Kate, thank you for that update. And checking the Steinhatchee River gauge live right now with the National Weather Service. The good news is that it's not even to minor flood stage at this point. In fact, it's at a normal level right now. Let's hope that it stays that way with the way that the winds are blowing the water toward the coast. But it's going to go beyond the coast where the flooding is a concern. We have multiple flash flood warnings in effect right now. First to know, Chief Meteorologist Cassidy Villeneuve shows us where the heaviest rain is.
The heaviest rain is accompanying the eye wall, and it's been in place for the last couple of hours in terms of higher rain accumulations here in the Suwannee River Valley. That's why we're seeing a continued spread and issuance of several flash flood warnings, because there's already been the effects of multiple inches of rain being indicated in Lafayette County just based on radar estimates, and I'm going to step off later on to see if any rain gauges have shown verification of those multiple inches being indicated on the radar. But that's why there's been flash flood warnings, because 4 to 6 inches on top of more rain that's set to fall over the course of the next 12 hours. The calmness of the eye will start to move over Lafayette County pretty soon, so those winds will begin to diminish a bit in Mayo, but you still have those downpours. In fact, the UF-IFAS Extension Office to the west of Mayo had a wind gust in the mid-60s range recently, about about 65 miles per hour with sustained winds around 34. So you definitely have those stronger wind effects in terms of occasional stronger gusts, and that's bound to cause issues, along with the rain that you really can't see very much through, and the rain accumulating in such a high rate. In fact, those rainfall totals, we can put a 6-hour estimate in this region here. And within that warning zone, those darker shades indicating about 4 to 6. If we saw a little bit more of the pink and purple, that would indicate more than 6 inches. But it wouldn't surprise me if we put a 12-hour rain rate on there. We do have those purples. So that's estimating since about 8 o'clock last night, upwards of 6 to 7 inches within portions of Lafayette County. So that is definitely causing a lot of saturation on the land. The ground can only soak up so much. Yes, we've had a recent dry spell, but the last couple weeks we've had frequent bouts of downpours with summertime thunderstorms. So we've kind of caught up, and the ground can only soak up so much. So when you add a whole lot of water volume in terms of multiple inches of rain, there's just not much absorption that it can take. So you're going to have the standing water. You're going to have some rushing water, perhaps. And again, considering a hurricane is on top of you, just no reason to try to venture out. But just make sure that the flooding issue is at the top of your mind, because if some situations come to pass, you may have to take some action regarding that. But hopefully you're in a safe enough spot here in Lafayette and eventually Suwannee County to where you can withstand any kind of flooding issue that tries to come up. Those overall warnings continue to spread, as mentioned, into portions of the Suwannee River. I believe there was one for at least portions of Hamilton County. I'll have to verify and recheck that once again. But nonetheless, that band is set to move north, where those rain rates are going to be pretty high. In fact, we'll go into the rain rate, simply meaning if this area were to stay on top of this zone for a whole hour, this would be the result of how much rain can fall. It's not necessarily a forecast, but it gives you just an idea just how intense that rain activity is. So if these areas were to sit on top of Mayo for another hour, you can pick up another 5 to 7 inches. Of course, that's not necessarily going to be the case. But again, the intensity of the rain and the motion of that band, which has been in a fairly persistent pattern here over the last hour or so. We'll remove some of that decibel data, but to give you an idea of why the rainfall accumulates so heavily, because of how it all accumulates over time in this region. So that's been one major issue when it comes to just how much rain can fall over a short amount of time. That has been the problem across this region, because the overall rotation of that rain band and that eye wall kind of goes over the same area. And that causes the rain to add up pretty significantly. So that's the flooding concern that will continue to make its evidence more clear in portions of the Suwannee River Valley, along Highway 51, 129, and eventually into Madison County. So again, that's why there's been the issuance of that flash flood warning. It may not be happening in your neighborhood right now, and hopefully it continues to stay that way, but nonetheless, we cannot disregard the possibility of sustained heavy rain, slow to move out, connected to the eye wall, that can cause high rain accumulations. And there's also going on the wind effects that these storm winds will cause, with more evidence of down trees blocking roadways. And of course, during this time, it's not advised to be driving out, but this gives you just an idea, in case there is any doubt in your mind that these storms can cause issues for roadways and travel and hazards. Well, here's evidence, as our neighborhood reporter Alberto Camargo has been out and about in Suwannee County trying to get around Highway 129 and thereabouts and surrounding neighborhoods. It's been a tough go. And there's been more evidence of these gustier winds that aren't even necessarily at hurricane force, but they still create issues like that blocked roadway. And that's not just a Suwannee County thing. That's going to be a widespread issue across many of the eastern sections of the Big Bend, and perhaps even closer to some of our metro areas, not necessarily in the same amount of quantity, but definitely gusty winds will create some issues even in a lower wind category. For for some areas. Especially we need to monitor that area in southern Jefferson County and southwestern Jefferson, where the eastern, or rather the western side of this eye wall, as it circulates around the eye, it can bump up against the Alcilla River and nearby neighborhoods and communities there. So that is a possibility to keep in mind in terms of wind effects that may be felt in areas from Lamont to the south, where you may not have had so many effects up to this point. That could certainly be the case. As we continue to track the movement of Hurricane Debby here on WTXL, Tallahassee, Thomasville, Valdosta, you're watching First to Know weather coverage with me, Chief Meteorologist Casanova Nurse, and the whole team. Our executive reporter and manager Channing Frampton is also manning the anchor desk to pass along all the latest information about power outages, highway issues, and other pieces of information that you need to know as we continue to work through the next few hours with a hurricane in our neighborhood. And it's in the eastern Big Bend, where it's causing more issues on top of already sustained hurricane effects from last year. So this is definitely going to be something that keeps this sort of story in the top of our mind when it comes to another storm, another hurricane that's affecting our neighborhood. But at least we are here to get you through it one more time. And it's just going to take some time to get all this mess out of our region. But as the day goes on, we will find some areas of improvement. I guarantee you that. But it's going to be a little rough go for areas that will still have to endure times of gusty winds and rain. Tallahassee West, you're looking all right. Bainbridge, good morning to you. If you're watching coverage, you may have a little bit of a wind gust here and there, but not much in the way of rain. 319 has been a sharp cutoff barrier between the have-nots and the haves, if you will. You have the gusty winds. You have the heavy rain in the eastern areas. And more concern will be given for accumulating rain and flooding issues that will transpire across sections of the state line area and into the I-75 corridor, the Alapa River area. You may have less frequent of those stronger tropical storm force wind gusts, but I would suspect between now and about 10 o'clock, we'll start to have those wind characteristics picking up for you in areas like Valdosta, over to Lakeland, Statenville, as well as Hayhira. So those gusts are already being noticed, at least in a milder sense, with some sustained winds upwards of 20 to 30. Those gusts will kick in a little bit more, and especially as the overall lingering effects of the eye wall start to move closer to the state line, we will have those diminishing weather conditions in areas such as Jasper, Jennings, Lake Park, Clyattville, and eventually into the Azalea City, Valdosta. Thomasville, you're still kind of on the outer edge. You'll have some steadier rain and a pretty decent northeast breeze that can gust up at times, but it seems like you will stay at least somewhat of a buffer between the heaviest rain and the flooding risk that is there for you in Quitman and surrounding Brooks County neighborhoods, where we will not necessarily see the same rain rates, but we do have to monitor just how much can accumulate over time and see if any of that flooding risk does tend to sneak into some of our western areas where the rain has been a little less intense in comparison to portions of the Suwannee River.
Yeah, and Cass, you talked about Valdosta. We've been following safety patrols there and damage reports. Let's get to some video of some trees that we saw down earlier. Take a look at these photos. Earlier, our Valdosta neighborhood reporter, Malia Thomas, told us police are on patrol looking for people who need help. This shows Lowndes County crews out and about working to keep people safe. Paige Dukes sent us these photos from Highway 122 and Skipper Bridge Road earlier in the morning. That's east of Hayhira. It shows crews cutting through those trees as they come down. I want to get you a live look now of the Southwood neighborhood, also of Tallahassee, where the clouds are just racing overhead. This retention pond filling up with water, even on the outsides of those storms, that the rain bands are heavy. Our neighborhood reporter Terry Gilliam is monitoring the situation in the capital city.
I'm Terry Gilliam in the Northeast Tallahassee neighborhood, still right outside Childs High School, where it's one of the 6 shelters here in Leon County. I can tell you that the scenery is much different than what we've seen in Live Oak and even Perry for that matter, but I can show you better than I can tell you. I'm going to step around the camera real quick to let you all see what's going on here, but as you can see, the rain has kind of picked up just a little bit. Not a whole lot of wind, but just some rain, and it looks like it's coming in sideways, but don't be alarmed. to see the parking lot that's empty. A lot of people decided that they wanted to park right next to the gym because it's easier to get inside. But there's about a good 15 to 18 people here, and right now people are safe. But this is all that I have for you. I'll have more updates as soon as I get them.
All right, Terry, thank you for that update. As people wake up to this storm, it's moving north. It's heading through the parts of the Big Bend, leaving areas like Steinhatchee and Perry behind. But we still have plenty of more neighborhoods in line for the heavy rain and the flooding rain and the strong winds that we've seen doing damage, bringing down those limbs, tearing off pieces of roofs in Live Oak. First to know Chief Meteorologist Cass has an update on the strength of this storm. Cass, I have to ask, it's been over land for a while. Is it still a hurricane?
I do have to verify that with the update that just came out at 8 o'clock, but there's still some evidence of winds around 65, 70 miles per hour in portions of Lafayette County. So there's still at least near hurricane force gusts. I'm going to leave the first frame here of the forecast and focus weather data, forecast data on there, because it does have a pretty good distinct view of how we can see this storm going. And just verifying that, yes, it is still a hurricane as of the 8 o'clock update from the National Hurricane Center. 75 mile per hour winds. That's minimal level hurricane force, but it's still a hurricane. So we have to keep that in mind. Here's the forecast as how things will kind of play out over the next few hours. We'll go hour by hour based on this projection. It does have a pretty good set on where the eye is, good approximation. So we call that the initialization of the model data. It does have a decent representation of what's happening now. So let's go forward in time. Here's 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. The rotation of the eye wall on the northern and eastern side lifts through Suwannee County, encounters the territory of Hamilton County, and then the northern edge of it kind of starts bumping into our state line South Georgia region. Brooks, Lowndes County, by 10 o'clock, you'll start to encounter that northern eye wall. And as some of the stronger elements on the east side rotate around, that can give you a decent time estimation of when you can start to encounter a bit more of those frequent stronger gusts. So Statenville, Lake Park, perhaps around the Kinderloo neighborhood, and then over towards Quitman, I'd say the 10 o'clock hour probably provides you the best window of opportunity to get in on those stronger wind gusts. So be aware of that. I'd say don't set your clock to 10 o'clock, but I think that'll be a good time to expect those stronger wind gusts to occur. By 11 o'clock, continuing to make some motion towards inland areas, towards Lanier County, so Stockton, Lakeland in the 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock time frame. Those will be some areas that will also start to get in on strong winds, and this will move towards Clinch County and Homerville. While the eastern side of the eye wall moves into northeast Florida, the backside will still encounter and provide some periods of rain and perhaps some gustier trends by the midday hour near and east of Highway 319. And into the afternoon, we'll start to have decreasing rain coverage and decreasing wind speeds across our western areas. They're already at a lesser extent compared to the east. But that eye wall, what's left of it, will still make an advance through the Arabia Bay vicinity near Homerville, and the lingering effects of it can stretch into Berrien County. So that's why there's still the expectation, even into the afternoon, you can still have to fight against some of those stronger gusts of wind while what's left of the eye pushes through these very same areas around I-75 at the state line by late in the afternoon. And that's considering that it can be slowing down in overall forward speed, but at least by later this evening, say about 8 o'clock, the rain intensity will start to subside. There will still be some passing showers and lighter breezes, but at least the heavy rain threat will start to decrease, although any kind of leftover issues from the flooding that's occurring now and in the next few hours, that's going to be an issue that stretches into Tuesday and beyond.
All right, thank you, Cass. And I do want to circle back to Steinhatchee real quick. The water has come up. It is just below minor flood stage, so the water continues to rise in Steinhatchee. Meanwhile, in Suwannee County, take a look at this live picture on your screen. Our crew, featuring Alberto Camargo, has been traveling around the county looking for damage, and it looks like they have found some. Hopefully, whoever was in that truck is okay. It appears there is a tree on top of the truck. Alberto, if you can hear us, I would love to know, where are you? Is that person okay?
Thanks, Channing. Here we've got another look at some of the damage caused by Hurricane Debby. We're on US 129. We were heading down towards Brantford from Live Oak to maybe catch the eye of the hurricane and follow it up north again, but the road has been completely blocked off by this massive tree that's down on the road, blocking both lanes. In fact, you can see there to the right a red pickup truck that presumably tried to get around and is now stuck and is not able to move. We have not been able to verify if there's still someone in there, if they're okay. We haven't seen anybody come out or around the truck, but the truck does seem to be stuck at this moment, and looks like US 129 is entirely blocked off by this tree down in the road. We headed back into the studio. I'm Alberto Camargo, live in the First to Know Storm Chaser.
All right, thank you, Alberto. Please stay safe. Those trees can come down so quickly, especially with winds blowing so strong. We've seen gusts from the coast, inland, from, I think I saw a report of 90 miles per hour at one stem along the coast, and other places seeing 50, 60 miles per hour. This is a serious storm, and it still has a lot of power within it. First to Know Chief Meteorologist Cassidy Maneris can show us where some of those strongest gusts have come in and who is in line to get the next round.
That's right, Channing. We have seen multiple reports of wind gusts 60 to around 70. And you mentioned the Horseshoe Beach report from the WeatherStem camera. Well, I did glance at a tweet from them. And you may recall from Idalia, Horseshoe Beach was one of those harder hit areas. Some quality control has to go into that report of 96 mile per hour wind gusts. It was also cited by the National Hurricane Center. But I do think there needs to be at least some massaging of that data. And so we'll check back to see if that verified. But considering the hurricane at 85 mile per hour wind and gusts that can go higher, is certainly a possibility. But we'll just have to see if quality control verifies that report. Nonetheless, it does not dispute the fact that we've had some high wind impacts across our area, and they're still occurring. So the power outage numbers are increasing. We've seen the pockets of damage, trees down, and of course with saturated ground, with more rain on it, just makes some trees and their roots a little weaker and more susceptible to any quick gust that can knock it over. So that can be a big issue across many of our areas, especially those neighborhoods where we have a lot of trees up and a lot of forested landscape. So going zone by zone with the effects that are still anticipated through the rest of this morning, we've already seen wind speeds around 30 to 40 to near 50, and when you account for gusts, they have been closing in on 70. Haven't quite seen 80 mile per hour gusts across inland areas, so I think that may be a little tough to reach. But the point is, 60 mile per hour wind gusts, 65, 70, that's been common near the eye wall in Lafayette County, moving into Suwannee. That'll move into Madison. Plus those rain totals. We've already surpassed 4 inches in many areas, closing in on 7 to 8 based on radar estimates in Lafayette County, so we are well within that range of 4 to 10 inches. We could see that increasing as you move into Hamilton County, and based on some of the estimated power outage numbers, that is becoming a bit more of a widespread issue, and we'll probably reach that widespread range in terms of maybe the percentage of a county without power. It could be on the higher side going into the rest of this morning into the afternoon. And then into south central Georgia. Usually you think inland areas don't have much storm effects, but history has taught us with Michael and even Hermine back in 2016, you can certainly have effects, in Idalia just last year. So there will be some, not necessarily wind-related effects at a high magnitude, but definitely the rain effects, especially when the center, what's left of the eye, slows down. That's going to cause higher rain totals to gather here in the I-75 region of Lowndes County and into the Alapa River area of south central Georgia. So be aware of rain accumulations that can range from 6 to 12 inches. That includes areas like Homerville, Highway 84, and points north and east of there. That's where some of the highest totals are likely. And yes, you will have a few more power outages, even though the winds will start to decrease from their potentially high peak of 70 mile per hour gusts, but still 35, 45, 55 mile per hour winds, even in gusts, can have an effect on power availability, trees, snapping power lines, transformers, that bit. So we do expect that to be a little more common across our interior South Georgia regions. We're faring okay, I'll say, in the Tallahassee metro in terms of wind gusts and the effects on power outages. They're still reaching numerous levels. At last check, about 65,000 customers from the various utility services within Leon County. So those numbers are elevated. And of course, with the storm conditions as they are, it may take time for restoration there, but still in a numerous range. Rain totals will vary quite a bit. I think 1 to 4 is still fair to expect. I'd say the lower end as you're closer to Lake Talquin. The higher end, if you're on the eastern side of Leon County or perhaps even Thomas County, maybe 2 to 3, near 4 inches in an isolated case. That's certainly possible. And those winds around tropical storm force, I think 65 is tougher to achieve as far as the sustained wind right now. And Wakulla County, now with the eye to your east and moving away, your wind range will start to decrease as well. You've probably already had your peak wind gusts this morning. There'll still be a little blustering and squally with any kind of rain that comes through, but we can see maybe a decreasing amount of wind intensity. In the tri-state area, definitely looking at it fairly easy in comparison to our neighbors in our eastern side. Occasional wind gusts, maybe upwards of 45 if we're lucky or unlucky, whatever your perspective is on that. And rainfall will be much lower, 4 inches maybe out of reach, but maybe an inch if some of those rotating areas of moisture get that far to the west. But we've been saying for a while that tri-state areas would not get in on much storm action, just depending on where the eye went and considering where it is and where it's going. Those western areas are looking pretty good. But watch for the heavier rain. We mentioned just a little while ago, we can see some downpours that can turn into these inland central Big Bend areas, and that's where we can certainly have some high rain accumulations that can add up to a quick inch or two if this trend here from Monticello south towards St. Mark's is sustained. And even within the eastern reaches of Leon County and some eastern Tallahassee neighborhoods, certainly some higher rain totals are possible, while the strongest winds are still likely to be felt beginning to approach that I-10 corridor between, we'll say, exit 262 and 275 or 283. So that corridor there is going to be a very tough route to travel, and it's not advised to do so if you don't have to.
Hey, Cass, I'm always so impressed that you know every single exit and all the roads. You really have that amazing expertise. I want to take you live out now to Jasper, where the rain was coming down in buckets really just moments ago. It seems to have let up a little bit here, but look at this tree. It is really being pushed around by those powerful winds moving north toward the Florida-Georgia line. And over on this side here, this is the Hamilton County Emergency Operations Center. You can see there are cars parked here and people out working to keep people safe. I've been checking with Florida 511 in that area where we saw Alberto Camargo's live shot of the tree, which looked to be on top of the truck. It is one of several roads that are completely shut down in the Suwannee County area going north to south. The reports on Florida 511 show that there's debris on multiple major roads, including 129 and 47 here. Traffic on these roads, it really shouldn't even be happening. There shouldn't be people out and about because these winds are dangerous. This debris is out there. If you come across downed power lines, they can be very dangerous. So I'm hearing that we have another live look at this situation where Alberto Camargo is. Again, this road shut down. You cannot get through. Hopefully some first responders will be on the way to this scene soon, although we do know, we've talked about law enforcement. They have policies where if the winds are 35 miles per hour or above sustained, they will stay put until those roads, until the conditions improve, because it's not safe for them to be on the roads. So hopefully these winds die down here quickly. But as Cass was saying, this storm is moving sluggishly northward. So we're going to continue tracking it along with reports around the other areas. We're just wondering how long this is going to take to get through here. It's eerily similar to the same time of year, same position that Hurricane Idalia passed through less than a year ago. It was a much stronger storm, of course, but no doubt that there are neighborhoods in the same areas that we're just cleaning up that are going to have to start that process all over again as we go into the latter part of this year. And unfortunately, it's the time of year that when this storm clears out, the temperatures can go through the roof. And if you don't have power, you don't have AC, it's going to make recovery very difficult. I know First to Know Chief Meteorologist Cass has been talking about how temperatures could soar again later this week.
That's right, and it's not uncommon to have a rebound in temperatures just depending on the angle at which a hurricane or tropical storm moves. And in this case, given that it's moving northeast of the region and the circulation on the backside is counterclockwise, that will eventually put us in more of a westerly wind pattern and a drier trend. There's what we call subsidence on the western side of a system where the air kind of sinks a little bit and it suppresses the lift that's needed to cause the thunderstorm cycle that we would typically have in the afternoon. Doesn't mean we get low humidity and cool temperatures. We're not in that season, but we do get fewer of those showers to form and hotter temperatures because of more of that strong sunshine that we have in August. So I would anticipate mid-90s coming back, maybe some upper 90s by midweek. Hopefully with the power loss as it is and the resources that are on standby to get things restored, hopefully that process will be swift, but you have to keep reality in mind. It takes time for thousands of customers who lose power to get it back, and nature is not going to wait for power to be restored to crank up the heat. So that's something that we'll have to really be cautious about in this midweek time frame, as this will be to the northeast and we'll have a drier zone across our area with a suppressed rain and thunderstorm cycle to cool things down. But while it's here right now, we are going to continue to see some wraparound moisture that keeps rain a big presence in Perry, and that's where we have our reporter Forrest Saunders.
Well, guys, I can tell you that the conditions have maybe improved a little bit. The wind isn't necessarily as bad as it has been. That's not to say that things are good and safe and you can go out and enjoy your day. That's not the case, and it's not going to be for a while with Debby because it's a slow mover, and it's just going to keep pummeling us with rain. In fact, pummeling is the great word because that's what it feels like. It feels like you're getting hit in the face with little pieces of sleet. For any of my friends from up north, that's exactly what it feels like. Maybe little tiny balls of ice hitting you in the face because it's coming at such speed. The rain has been the issue with this storm. It will continue to be the issue with this storm. You can see a little bit of the flash flooding in the grass behind me. It's also pooling here in the road in front of me. And this is going to be an ongoing issue. That's one of the reasons why the state has taken so many precautions. They've built up these water temporary dams basically around power substations, around vital infrastructure like wastewater treatment facilities. They're doing everything they can to protect from the water because they know that Debby's going to keep bringing inches and inches of rain. They don't have to worry so much about the storm surge, obviously, here inland like in Perry, but what we've found is a lot of the people that are staying at the hotel where I'm at right now, they're coming from those coastal communities, places like Steinhatchee, places like Keaton Beach, places like Cedar Key, all areas that were impacted by Idalia, and now here they are waiting out this storm, wondering if their property is going to be okay this time around. So it's just a constant battle here in Florida. Obviously, they are all too aware of how dangerous Mother Nature can be around this time of year. And just think about it. This is just the start of hurricane season. How crazy is that? There are already other systems out there in the Gulf that could potentially spin up this way. We're going to have to wait and see on that, but it is definitely concerning. It is definitely scary, and it's definitely not safe to be out until this storm passes. And you see a lot of people are heeding that warning because the streets are barren behind me. A lot of businesses are closed today, as they should be, because this is still a developing and dangerous situation. But I can tell you, that is the latest out here in Perry. We will obviously keep you updated as things progress.
All right, thank you, Forrest. And we've been talking about the danger of being out on the roads right now. I wanted to give you a live look at I-10. Take a look at this. This is a tractor trailer jackknifed on the side of the road. There is a crew out here working to remove that truck following a crash earlier today. There's a lot of debris on I-10 right now. This camera is courtesy of the Florida Department of Transportation. I want to send it out now to Maya Sargent. She's in Perry monitoring conditions there.
I'm Mayor Sargent in Perry, in Taylor County, just slightly more inland than where Hurricane Debby made landfall in Steinhatchee at 7 a.m. this morning. I want to show you what we're seeing in town. Lots of wind, lots of rain, creating those flash flood warnings, a lot of water, but we are seeing people out on the roads, even though there is a curfew, and emergency management are advising people to stay off those roads. On top of that, we're seeing a lot of power outages here. Hotel that we're staying in on US 19 is sustaining power outages. Doctors Memorial Hospital have told me they're currently on their backup generators, and I've received lots of text messages from neighbors saying that they're sustaining power outages in their homes as well. In Perry, Mayor Sargent, ABC 27. Like many others, David West spent part of his Sunday storm prepping.
Making sure, number one, that all my rechargeable batteries are charged up. The next thing is anything that can blow away and do damage, secure it.
He says he has been through several storms in his Killarn Estates home and is no stranger to getting ready for impact. That process is something Leon County Emergency Management Director Kevin Peters says ideally should have happened before the sun went down.
It might be too late as the storm makes approach.
He says neighbors should already have all of the supplies they need.
And we'll have more from Kendall Brand coming up as we continue our coverage. This live look over Wakulla County now shows the dark clouds moving relatively quickly with this system as it continues to move. The trees aren't moving quite as briskly. There is a flag down here that's flapping in the breeze, but the strongest of the winds definitely more toward Madison County and Suwannee County, moving up into South Georgia. First, the Chief Meteorologist Casanova Nurse has an update.
Channing, that's right. When we talk about wind gusts versus sustained winds, the sustained winds are those that blow pretty consistently for about a minute. That's a sustained wind. When you have a gust, that's more of those quick bursts that last maybe 5-10 seconds, and then you kind of fall back into that more sustained trend. So the sustained winds have been mostly in the range of about 25, 35, even 45 miles per hour at times here in the Suwannee Valley, Taylor, Lafayette County in particular. And there's more than just these official observation points. There are many that are run. You hear us talk about WeatherStem. They're a great organization that has all these little devices, weather observation stations, and they measure all kinds of weather data around the clock. So we use some of those. The University of Florida Agricultural Organization has several of those, and there's other privately run ones. So it's not just those that we see on here, but an access of a network of various points that show weather observation information. So those across the Suwannee Valley have been pretty consistent in that 30, 40, 45 range, and outside of those little points that are not shown on the official map. So those wind speeds have been pretty steady. The wind gusts have been pretty consistent as well, and that Foley Airport has been at 52. But some of those independently run sites in Lafayette County around Mayo have been steady and consistent with their screens, with their wind gusts upwards of about 60 miles per hour. And I was noticing that just myself a little while ago. There's still that eye wall effect that's giving those wind speeds a pretty good amount of height when it comes to the range that they have been able to achieve with those gusts. So that's going to continue to be the zone closer to the eye wall and where it moves inland. So we can still have those enhanced gusts in portions of, say, Suwannee, Hamilton County. Forecast wind gusts, those quick bursts, can still be around the mid-range tropical storm force, 50, maybe even 60 miles per hour. And that can also have an effect across inland areas. So Brooks, Lowndes County, your hurricane warning at last check, I think, was still in effect, but having a 75 mile per hour wind gust is not quite as likely. However, you can still have a wind gust in the range of 40, maybe even 50, and that can last into the afternoon. And don't discount the possibility of some gusty winds that kind of bring up the water levels maybe at a lesser extent compared to earlier today in Keaton Beach and Steinhatchee and Horseshoe, but there is that possibility for steadier winds that can still gust upwards of 40 to 50, and that can keep the breezes and those effects going for areas along 361 and even towards Highway 19 in Taylor County. While western areas, again, with a little displacement of the forecast of the eye position, there will still be at least some times of a good chance for 25, 30, 35 mile per hour wind gusts in the 319 corridor, and perhaps even deeper into South Georgia, closer to where 319 intersects with I-75. So there's still going to be some winds to deal with, some branches to be knocked over, and probably a lesser effect on actual structures unless trees have an impact on those. But just keep in mind that the winds will start to ease. It'll be a gradual process. The rain, however, is still likely to be an issue at least through the late night hours. And as this slows down, you'll have more rain accumulating in sections of southeastern Georgia.
All right, so Cass, the winds might be easing, but the power outages certainly are not. Take a look at your screen. Taylor County right now has an estimated 12,000 customers without power. In Leon County, the capital county, 3,000 customers are estimated without power. Suwannee County looking the worst right now with an estimated 20,000 customers in the dark. And you can see the counties in South Georgia, including Thomas, Brooks, Lowndes, Eccles, Clinch. Those numbers are inching up into the hundreds. I wouldn't be surprised to see them go even higher than that as those strong winds move north. I just got an update from Talquin Electric Cooperative just 20 minutes ago. They posted on their Facebook page that they alone have 21,012 members without power throughout their service area. If you are looking for power resources while you wait for crews to respond, or if you're using a generator and want to make sure you're doing it safely, I want you to look for the ABC 27 News app. It's WTXL. Download it to your phone. And we've got an article, Debby causing power outages in the Big Bend in South Georgia. We've got links to all of the outage maps from the different providers. We've got Ashley Engel telling you how to use a generator safely. And we've got links to ways that you can stay safe and go find shelter in our app as well. So make sure you have that while you work through this storm. We're going to continue tracking these outages as the storm continues to move. It looks like Alberto Camargo is back on the move in Suwannee County right now, though that rain is coming down very hard. Look at this. No traffic lights. They are in the dark there. So if you are heading out and you come to an intersection, be very careful. Look for other cars. It looks like he's coming up on another piece of debris as we speak. What is this? This looks like a tree that has come down across the road. It looks like there's a car stuck on the other side. I'm not sure what road this is on. We do know that he was trying to get to Brantford, coming down south from Live Oak. And as he focuses in there, that is a pretty sizable tree blocking at least 3/4 of the road there. But just look at the sheets of rain that are just coming through as this storm continues to move north slowly, albeit. I heard Cass mention 10 miles per hour not too long ago. So it really just a brisk walk of a pace. Looks like they're going to try to go around this mess here. So one person stopped monitoring the situation on the other side, and I'm sure this isn't the last tree that they're going to come across as they continue to work their way through Suwannee County. So really developing situation. And at last check, as of the 8 a.m. update about 30 minutes ago, Cass told us this is still considered a hurricane. 75 miles per hour. And you can see from this map where exactly it went. The yellow counties, some of the hardest hit areas. You've got all those canopy trees. They are really a situation that can be dangerous for a lot of neighbors. So while we work to keep you informed, Leon County is working to keep folks informed with their emergency managers. Neighborhood reporter Kendall Brandt has an update on what they are working on.
Rain is still coming down. We're still feeling some wind gusts here in our Leon County neighborhoods. I'm Kendall Brandt in northeast Tallahassee near the public safety complex. And again, we're seeing that rain come down. It's coming down a little bit sideways. It's not too heavy right at this moment. But again, you should be staying inside. Even if you think conditions are okay to go outside, you need to let this storm pass through before you go outside or get on the road. So we encourage you to stay in a safe place in your home or friends and family's home, or in a shelter to where you are safe from these elements. And again, the wind is picking up just a little bit. While our conditions here in Leon County and Tallahassee might be more mild than others, again, it's important that you stay inside. In northeast Tallahassee, I'm Kendall Brandt.
South now to Cedar Key, just south of our viewing area, but a place that many neighbors may visit frequently. This is storm surge flooding, and this isn't from Idalia last year. This is from earlier this morning and overnight as the water from the Gulf came in with the strongest winds associated with Hurricane Debby. And we are watching the water come up in this community. It's covering roads there. It looks like some rapids there with the wind blowing in. We've also been keeping a close eye on the water in Steinhatchee, where storm surge flooding is also a concern. Fortunately, it looks like it may be approaching minor flood stage, but it's hard to say how much higher it's going to go at this point. That stop sign almost submerged there. That is incredible. So take a look at Alligator Point now. This live look from Franklin County. The wind still whipping these palms, the whitecaps out on the water. This is interesting, though. It looks like the leaves are being blown in a slightly different direction than what they were earlier. I imagine first to know Chief Meteorologist Casanova Nurse can explain why.
I certainly can and will, as the winds are now becoming more offshore across portions of the Forgotten Coast. So a little wind shift. Before the eye came in, it was more of an east wind pattern. Now that the eye is over here, the circulation goes around that way. So there's more of an offshore northwesterly wind component across the Forgotten Coast. So that can kind of change the orientation of how those trees are blowing. I was curious about the status of the hurricane warnings for those interior sections of southern Georgia, or rather the state line areas, but inland from where the eye made landfall. And indeed, hurricane warnings are still in effect. Update just came out from our local National Weather Service folks. So it verifies that the warning is still in effect in Brooks and Lowndes and Lanier counties in South Georgia, plus Clinch and Eccles, as deemed necessary by the Jacksonville National Weather Service folks. Also, Jefferson through Lafayette still in effect, Taylor, as well as coastal Wakulla and coastal Franklin County and all of Appalachia Bay. The one area that has been taken out of the hurricane warning is inland Wakulla County. Getting some reports from my in-laws, my family in Wakulla County, who are saying that there has been some power outages, but things overall have been okay aside from the power outages. So that's good to know from folks I know and trust, my own family. But definitely seeing at least some easing of the concerns when it comes to the wind effects or the extreme wind effects that a hurricane force gust could cause in some areas, but it's still going to be a concern across the eastern side of the Big Bend and South Georgia near I-75. Tropical storm warnings are still in place in areas where we earlier had the hurricane warning, but still a tropical storm warning for interior Wakulla County. Winds can still gust pretty significantly. We still have them in effect from the Gulf County area through the Apalachicola Forest, and then over into the South Georgia communities near and east of the Flint River, and over into the Alapa River area, including Berrien County. So you can still have those times where wind gusts in particular can be at or above 39 miles per hour. And if that were to occur, it would likely be within the next 12 to 24 hours or already occurring. There have been some counties taken out of the tropical storm watch. Miller County, Baker County, and Seminole County. You are out of any kind of tropical related advisory. That's great for y'all. So y'all can hopefully have an easier Monday to go forward through and maybe just deal with occasional breezes, passing clouds, and maybe a shower, but nothing as extensive as what we've been seeing across our eastern areas. And that really lines up with our original forecast, where western areas were not going to get a whole lot of anything. Eastern areas would bear the brunt of the rain and wind. That's exactly how we've seen it pan out over the last several hours. So we'll take a look at what's going on right now in terms of the rain and wind activity. And anywhere we have the downpours associated with the eye wall, you're going to have some gustier winds. And that's been moving at least out of Taylor County somewhat, as what's left of the eye in the calmer area continues to envelop areas from Perry south along Highway 19 over into southwestern Lafayette County, the Cooks Hammock area. You don't have so much of active wind motion. There's still some breezes around. The rain is breaking for you. Mayo, you've been inundated by the rain-wind combo. I've seen numerous wind gusts upwards of 60 to 68 miles per hour from some of those reporting sites there. Things will start to ease back for you, at least temporarily. You just have to give it some time and some patience, and hopefully, I'm sure folks there can get through that, but it's still a rough go for another several minutes as the lingering eye wall continues. But we'll rotate around and push towards Live Oak, so your winds have been gusting in the 40 to 50 range off and on for the last hour or so. That will likely continue. In Madison County, this is where the northern edge of the eye wall is getting to you. So your winds are a little bit enhanced. And I'm just going to step off very briefly to check some of those reports from various networks and their reports. I see a wind gust of 61 based on the WeatherStem site at Madison County High School, 42 at the Creative Arts Academy, and 41 at the Madison County EOC. Those are the recent wind gusts being reported. So that does match up pretty well with the positioning of the eye wall. So 40, 50, near 60, that's been pretty common in terms of wind gusts. Sustained winds have been right around 20 to 30, so that definitely has an effect on the quality to be outside, the availability of power, the susceptibility of trees to be impacted, branches or perhaps even whole trees that can be knocked over by even what seemed like modest wind gusts in comparison to a 75-mile-per-hour hurricane. But as we've seen in so many occurrences and seen with our own reporters, trees down will be a common thing across many of these areas being impacted by the current positioning of the eye wall and the future movement of it. Hamilton County, you're kind of next in this. From Live Oak south on Highway 51, this will kind of roll through. So I'd say another hour or so, you'll have those gusts of wind more frequent in the Jasper-Jennings area along 41. Along 129, Highway 6 as well. Those will be some zones where you will encounter those steadier winds and occasionally stronger bursts of wind that will come with the approach of what's left of the eye wall. And of course, through the next hour or so, by 10 o'clock or so, we'll have those same effects coming into a more densely populated area of Lowndes County. So be aware of the similar conditions that you can experience. Winds have been, I'd say, maybe manageable for the time being, but we can certainly have those 40, 50, 60-mile-per-hour gusts coming a little more often into southern Lowndes County by about 10 o'clock or so. That can also have an effect in Eccles County near Statenville. Those winds will be higher for you. And we do have to monitor just how much rain can fall from this area where we've seen some high evidence of high rain totals, more rain coming, more rain adding up. Too much in certain areas causes a flooding issue for flash flooding. That's why flash flood warnings continue to be in effect until 2:15 for Madison, northeastern Jefferson, Brooks, and Lowndes County, and then an expiration time, I believe, at 10:45 for Taylor and Lafayette County, and then the flash flood warning goes until noon in Suwannee County. And with more heavy rain coming through the heart of Suwannee County, we can see worsening flood situations in some neighborhoods and local roadways in that region.
Yeah, Cass, and if you're not able to watch us, we do have a live blog that we're updating on our website at WTXL.tv. It's got videos, it's got updates from emergency management, one of which, as we mentioned, this storm is moving north, and it's going to moving into the Valdosta, Lowndes County area. I did want to let you know, Lowndes County Emergency Management posted that they have officially activated the Emergency Operations Center. So the folks in Lowndes County are working to keep neighbors safe as this storm moves north. If it's any indication of what is possible with the trees that we've seen come down and the heavy rains that we've seen bringing up the waters, it could be a long day in Lowndes County and much of our viewing area. Also checking with the roads with Florida Highway Patrol. I mean, you look at the Interstate 10 between Tallahassee and the Suwannee River, essentially, and it's just a line of yellow triangles indicating that there's debris on the road, similar to what we are seeing here with our roving camera. Neighborhood reporter Alberto Camargo is in Suwannee County at last check. I believe that's where he still is, and this road looks relatively clear. He's come across multiple blockages, though, where trees have been blown onto the roadway. If you were here for Hurricane Michael in 2018, you know that those pine trees blew onto I-10. Florida Highway Patrol had to go out and cut them up to clear the way. I imagine we're going to see similar scenes here in Suwannee County and Hamilton County. I know that the storm's moving up that way right now. What have I got behind me? This is Alligator Point. I mean, along the coast, the wind is still whipping. We might see some beach erosion with those onshore winds that could damage places like Alligator Point, where They're relatively low to begin with. We also continue to track power outages. We understand that there are 20,000 customers without power in Suwannee County as of last check. And this storm just continues moving north. Take a look at this latest map that we've got from our system. This is the percentage of the county that's out right now. Lafayette County, 80% of people without power right now. We do want to check in with Dixie County, though, right now. Michael Paluska's there. He's been standing by monitoring those conditions.
This is Michael Paluska with Scripps News, where we've been reporting in the Big Bend area on Hurricane Debby that we're now on the backside of the eye wall. 2-3 hours ago, things got really hairy when we were in the eye wall, the top right quadrant, northeast quadrant of the storm. We were in that for maybe 2.5 hours, and the wind and the rain was blinding, hurricane force gusts, and we've seen just a ton of these palm fronds go down, but maybe about 20 minutes from where I'm standing is Horseshoe Beach in the Big Bend area. And if you're not familiar with this area, Horseshoe Beach is a quiet, tiny, beautiful, almost like a retirement community, old Florida charm. Right now, people's backyards, their homes are surrounded by water. The Gulf of Mexico has met them, and there's waves and wave action still, according to videos that we saw that were posted on Facebook Live. And also, we were able to talk to the mayor of Horseshoe Beach over the phone, Jeff Williams, and he's describing people that had ceilings collapse on them, people hunkering down on the second floor of their homes, going upstairs where as high as they can to escape the water. The surge projection for this area was 6 to 10 feet, and the mayor said, hey, he thinks at least 6 to 7 feet. His home is right on the water. And his dock was just having the waves just come up under it. It looked like his dock was starting to fall apart. Right now, just to give you the perspective of some of the winds that we're seeing now, they've definitely died down. I think we're pretty much out of the eye wall, and now we're just getting the tail end of this, which is the weaker part of this hurricane. Hurricane Debby now kind of going up towards Perry and then slowing down, but we're still getting these gusts out here, and people in the Big Bend area, they know that this is a natural environment. There's not a lot of big block structures. There aren't really parking garages where you can park your car safely up top, or you can, be in a big brick condo. These are all old school Florida homes. Some of them frame construction that are up on stilts. And from what the mayor was saying is the husband and wife that are now trapped in their home, they have an older house that sustained a lot of damage from Hurricane Idalia, which was a Cat 3, made landfall at the end of August. Actually, the anniversary is coming up 20 some odd days or so. And their home was already damaged and compromised because of Hurricane Idalia. And now they just got a double whammy. They've been hit again. And so they described their home collapsing around them. And that was confirmed by the mayor on the phone call with us a short time ago, where their ceiling has collapsed. People here in the lobby of the Putnam Lodge where we're staying, they're watching all the reports, and someone actually just left to try to see if they could get to Horseshoe Beach, which the sign for the road to go is right there. They made it, I don't know, maybe a mile, and the entire road was underwater. And the most dangerous thing now is to go out as the water's rising. You can't see under the road, and your car can get picked up, and you can end up in one of these marshes. And that's a scary situation, because really there's no first responders out that are going to be able to come and get you, and you don't want to put their lives in danger either. I was just talking to another anchor with Scripps News about Hurricane Ian and some of the people that died in that storm. They were all caught in the storm surge, and we evacuated Keaton Beach, which is just north of Horseshoe Beach, because of that 6 to 10 foot storm surge. And so some people stayed behind, they didn't evacuate. Now they're getting that storm surge. Surge is one of the hardest things to predict, because it all depends on how much water is pushing in with the onshore flow, the offshore flow, where it's going to come in. The Gulf of Mexico is extremely shallow in our area. You got to go out 30, 40 miles into the Gulf before you start hitting deep water, and even that's 200 feet or so from where we are. So all that water's been pushing and piling. The good thing about this Cat 1 So it didn't push as much water as, say, Hurricane Idalia last year. Didn't push as much water as Hurricane Ian, which was a major hurricane as well. So, I mean, there are some silver linings in our coverage, but still right now there are people trapped in their homes on Horseshoe Beach. We're going to need swift water rescue, potentially. We're going to need airboats. FWC is going to be responding. We've got the National Guard responding. And then, of course, getting people food, supplies, whatever they might need. If they're injured, ambulance. So there's a lot of work to be done. And this storm that we're in right now, it's going to start circling back up and then slowing down. All that water is going to dump. Everything flows south here in Florida. It's very porous limestone. So a lot of it will go into the aquifer in this area because we don't have a lot of concrete. It's a nature coast. And so, yeah, we're going to have to deal with this wind. We're going to have to deal with this rain. But the storm surge and the people that are cut off right now, that's the biggest concern for first responders. We're not able to even get out from our hotel right now and go drive into any of these places because we're not going to drive through high water to get there. Really intense moments today where we had to duck in and out of cover. You can see kind of all the debris behind me. We saw explosions from transformers, lightning, the power flickering. It came back on here in our hotel where we're staying at. But it has been a long night. It's going to be a long morning, and it's going to be an even longer day. And a lot of the folks that are impacted up and down Big Bend, they are now rebuilding from a second storm, and they hadn't even rebuilt from their first storm. So we're positioned in a place where when it's safe to go in there and talk to some of those folks and give people a perspective of how bad this was, that's what we're going to do. So for now, we're going to hunker down here, jump in and out when we get these big bands so that we can not get hit by any debris and just keep reporting this for Scripps News all day long. So for now, here we are live in Dixie County. Michael Paluska, Scripps News.
All right, thank you, Michael. And back out to Suwannee County Live. Look at Dowling Park. Look, the Suwannee River is right here. You can't even see it. The rain is coming down so hard. That eye wall that Michael was talking about being in earlier, it appears to be moving into this part of our viewing area. Holy cow. That is some powerful wind. And with that, more power outages can be expected. Thomasville city government, they just posted 1 minute ago that they've got 1,900 customers out of power due to Hurricane Debby as the outer bands move north and into South Georgia. So this storm is far from over. And if you live in South Georgia, you need to be ready to be in a safe space because first to know, Chief Meteorologist Casanova Nurse is telling us that it's going to go that way and bring some pretty powerful winds with it. Even though it is weakening, it's weakening slowly. And as it moves into those more inland parts of our viewing area, the flooding rains are going to be a big concern. Valdosta has had multiple rounds of flooding this year, and we've got to see where that flooding rain is going to go next. Cass, I'm curious, what is causing this picture in Dowling Park right now?
Oh, goodness. That is the definite eye wall that's moving in through that region of Suwannee County. Fortunately, we don't have the same effect across our Tallahassee neighborhoods, but we do have the gusts of wind and the heavier rain, at least the steadier rain that's been occurring in many areas. And even in South Georgia, in Hahira, not the eye wall, but you definitely have the winds that are coming at you, and that will cause more power loss, and it will cause more rain accumulation. So those high rain totals, I was looking at the rain gauges, and there were several across Lafayette County in the range of 6 to 7 inches. So I see some verification of the estimates. But what is causing the heavy rain that's occurring now over Dowling Park? It's simply the positioning of the eye wall. And what's left of it will be still intense in causing those gusts of wind, but they are definitely still a potent factor in what's happening across the Suwannee River Valley over the next several minutes and really even beyond. So this is the batch based on the radar echoes and the data that's rolling right into Dowling Park. So that's why we're seeing such a violent motion in those treetops there above the Christian Advent Center, because that's where we're seeing the outflowing gusts coming in. That's Dowling Park there. And that's where we are seeing it in relation to the overall motion of the eye wall. So that's what's causing those very strong winds right now. That is the core of where we're seeing our strongest winds. And that's going to be a factor that continues for a while. And of course, that camera looks like it's at an elevated level. At ground level, you have trees and such that will kind of slow down and disrupt the flow of air. You don't have that disruption when you're at the tops of trees. So you do have that ongoing flow that's just unabated by any kind of friction, so you do get that extra motion at the top there. And it's definitely enhanced by what's the lingering eye wall within that region. So that just gives clear evidence that even at the ground level, you will have some times where the gusts will be pretty hefty, and you don't want to be caught out in it. Let the cameras do their thing, and let your eyes look through the screen and give you that evidence of what's going on. So there's good reason why we still have a variety of warnings, including hurricane warnings. I have not seen, with my own evidence, a hurricane force gust within this region, but it's not been far off. When you get those 60-mile-per-hour gusts, it doesn't take much more to eclipse that 74-mile-per-hour level. So there's still that possibility, even though it's not going to be necessarily widespread occurrence, there's still that possibility you can get into that range. Plus, those gustier winds can come even on the backside of the system where the winds have been generally on the weaker side, but still you can get those squalls that come with those heavier batches of rain that have been rotating through this region here on the western side of the circulation. So that's why there's occasions of steady rain that come with those little squally bouts across portions of Leon County and right up and down Woodville Highway to the St. Marks area. That's where we have one of those batches of heavy rain, and that can come with those gusts. Those come around on the weaker side of the system, but they're still not pleasant to be caught out in there. So maybe if you're trying to take a little easier approach here in the Leon-Wakulla County area after such a close brush by with this hurricane, just be aware and cautious that there are still going to be some associated hazards. They can be a little more sporadic or a little more spread out, but they're still present, especially with the fast motion of these rotating around through the heart of the Tallahassee Metro. And I've been mentioning over the last hour that western side that's been rotating around, that is what's left of that portion of the eye wall. So it is over the Greenville area. Maybe some stronger winds on 221 close to Asheville, Lovett Road, those areas. And then rotating south through Lamont. You have those downpours coming at you, and you can see maybe a little more of a horizontal or even diagonal orientation of the raindrops just based on the winds that are flowing out of this. In this region of the Alcilla River near Lamont and to the east, you do have that flash flood warning. I haven't seen major accumulations yet, but definitely the sustained trend of ongoing rain, the rainfall will add up to another good 2 to maybe even 4 inches on top of what's already fallen.